Mix them up a little bit. Ooh. Let's go for this one. With organised religion notoriously hostile to gay people, how important should spirituality be to the gay community?
Oh, it's a good question, isn't it? They just keep coming. It's all right, these good questions.
I don't know, I draw a big line between religion and spirituality and how spiritual a person is, because religion usually implies something that's very structured and ordered and based on some kind of scripture, whereas spirituality, I don't even know how you define that, as in, I don't know, pertaining to your kind of spirit. I mean, they both have very different connotations to me, and I'd like to be more spiritual. I mentioned this. I mean, you can consider yourself quite a spiritual person. Yeah. But I think both of us would never kind of associate with any particular religion.
No. I mean, yeah. I mean, I've developed my own sort of form of spirituality over the last sort of, I would say, 10 years, and it's been really great for me to kind of like pick and choose from lots of different things I've researched into, and then kind of formed my own sort of personal experiences. My personal belief is that, you know, spirituality and I think religion, you know, with the major religions like, you know, Catholicism, you know, my parents, my mother being, you know, sort of raised Catholic, I've got an idea of Catholicism, and I think, you know, it is generally a religion based on guilt, you know, which I think is a very good thing to pass on to people, you know.
I'm not religious at all, and I think for the most of my life I've not been a very spiritual person either.
Right.
I've never felt the absence of religion in my life, and never kind of felt that I needed it, but I think definitely more recently I've really welcomed in having a sort of more spiritual development and growth in my life, and I think really all that comes down to is just feeling a lot more connected with people, the kind of land that you live on, and sort of really nurturing and understanding that and making those connections however you do. I mean, you've obviously had your own sort of spiritual journey through different experiences, and that's the beauty of it, isn't it? It's a very personal sort of journey that you can go on. Yeah. And I'd encourage everybody to sort of begin and see where it takes you. Yeah. Because it takes you to really interesting places.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, completely.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think, you know, queer people have had the fingers burnt really with like the, you know, mainstream religion, as it were. Queer people have been very much associated with something unnatural, with something sinful, with something that doesn't fit with, you know, any kind of concept of the divine. Yeah. And I'm not fucking surprised that, you know, queer people have given the, you know, to religion, and I'm not surprised that there's a deficit of spirituality within our community, because people have come away feeling very upset and have had a really rough time with it. Yeah. You know, it's nice to hear of your journeys, because I've been on a similar journey. Right. Whereas it was only a few years ago where I was kind of a steadfast atheist, and, you know, any of that kind of, you know, quackery, you know, I'd kind of point to my kind of my totems up there, like, you know, Richard Dawkins, and Christopher Hitchens, and be like they had the answers. But now I really don't think that they do. Yeah. And I think it was through ill health, I think, kind of being ill, not feeling very well, looking for answers in kind of Western science and medicine, not getting them, then looking to kind of different things that would make me better, that I kind of started looking at Buddhism and the amazing lessons about meditation, and Hinduism and the yoga and Ayurveda, which comes out of India, and all these things combined. You know, practicing them started to give me a realization of spirit, you know, I call it that, and a kind of a sense that I'm more than what, you know, these idiots make me out to be. Sorry for taking so much space up with this, but I needed to like drop in the Radical Furries, which had been a great kind of source of strength for me, which is a community I've kind of come across within the last year or so. Through friends, and, you know, they're based on these kind of really spiritual principles, and looking at queer people in particular as a very unique kind of being who are, you know, a spiritual kind of people.
To me, the idea of spirituality is really just to kind of like liberate the soul. It isn't to cage it at all, and I think just in general, I think, you know, with our kind of industrial kind of society that we have, everything's becoming sort of very removed actually from this, from a core sense of well-being for ourselves. I think we're becoming very disconnected with nature, and we're becoming more and more disconnected with it because it's actually it's profit-driven. You know, it's better if we're disconnected from nature, because if people cared more, then we probably would want to consume less.
It's so true. It's like I think they're all kind of linked, these trains of thought, which is kind of this mechanistic view of the human, this rationalist kind of perspective on life and how things should be, and if things don't match a particular schema or a randomised control trial, then it's kind of discounted as kind of quackery. And then there's this devaluing of nature and splitting of the human from nature rather than seeing us as part of a process and a whole. What do you think, Jackson?
I understand how you're advocating spirituality, and that I agree with. You said you identified as atheist once. For me personally, there was a very specific moment where you could draw a graph, and being comfortable with being atheist coincides with being comfortable with being gay. And yet atheism has gradually kind of wavered away just because it hasn't fulfilled me, in the sense that I used to hold up Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens in the same kind of light. But looking back, they're really unlikable people as well as, and you kind of want to agree with what they're saying, but like you wouldn't want to be friends with them or kind of ever have them round. And it's you saying, we mentioned that I kind of felt the need to kind of be more spiritual. And health brought it up as well. I mean, I had a few problems with depression, and I knew that and science certainly wasn't helping it and viewing a person as a machine. It just wasn't, I knew it was fundamentally wrong, and it was the first time that I acknowledged anything that was a spirit. And I knew that medication or something like that really wouldn't cure it, in the sense. And it's an odd experience to realise that you do have a spirit or a soul. It's an odd kind of discovery going from atheist to that. And it's been a wake-up call, but it's something that I'm still going on, so I can't really wrap it up in a big statement.
I mean, I've been through some really hard times, and I was really lucky actually. My doctor, didn't want to prescribe me any sort of antidepressants or any medication for that, because I think he could just see it wouldn't work for me. And I think having other friends who have had problems with depression or whatever, and they've taken antidepressants. Some it's kind of like allowed them to sort of work with it. But then some of my friends who have had it for a long time, and they've just been on medication for a long period of time, have just ended up kind of being reliant on it, and they're not kind of trying to work it out for themselves. And I think sort of understanding sort of that there's something within you that you can work out yourself is so much more empowering than just thinking, I can just I'll just take that medication that will just sort it out. So I think it just really just buries it under the carpet.
Yeah, I think there's a. You said then you once described yourself as atheist, and I suppose in some ways, and I hope I can get this out properly, I still would, to a certain extent, in terms of how that's applied to kind of hateful, organised religion. I think I find an affinity with kind of paganism, for example, which is about kind of finding a spirituality, seeing the spirit in everything, really, kind of understanding the wholeness of all and your place within that kind of whole. These are the things that make sense to me, do you know what I mean? Rather than seeing myself as kind of isolated and alone, kind of finding some comfort in teachings that kind of have a better and a greater narrative.